everybody. We're back. 12th episode of the Spot Burn Podcast. We got a few more people in the studio. At least one more. He's back for more. But you got Josh and Dan, and is joined by Gabe tonight.
Hello, everyone.
Bam Bam, how are you doing? You're coming at us from Eau Claire.
I'm doing well. It's fall in the air. The muskies are biting and cooperating a lot, so it's very exciting right now.
Is that why you're chipper and happy and not just like angry and abusive, or is there something else going on in life? You're smiling over there.
Yeah, I'm just having a great day. All things are awesome right now. I got a Hams beer in my hand, so no complaints up here.
Love it. Love it.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, we got a fun one today. We are going to dive in and do a little bit of recap on the Treelands Musky Fly Fishing Tournament. The Musky Fly Fishing World Championships. They call it that. I know.
World.
It gets a lot of people, but it might be a misnomer. But yeah, we got a bunch of juicy details. We all fished it. We're also going to talk a little bit about the Beast as far as the Beast of the East, the other fly fishing for Musky tournament going on roughly the same time. Got a little bit of insight from that one. Josh went to that one last year, so he'll have a little bit compare and contrast as well, which will be cool to hear. But we're excited about it. Big thank you for always supporting, subscribing, commenting, listening. That's why we keep putting them out there. And as you got questions or you got comments or ideas for new episodes, we're always on the hunt. So send it our way. We'd love to hear it. Quickly, sponsor plug. You guys know the drill. Two companies we use all the time in the boat, or the boats themselves. Cortland Line Company out of New York. Awesome fly lines, especially their specialty series for musky. They have float all the way to sink 8, and they have lines all the way up to 600 grains, which is very nice. Not many people do that, and we, especially for those new Tommy Chippewa River 10-foot rods, those lines are sweet. And secondly, we got Stealthcraft boats. Big fans. We were just in the Hooligans last week. Our team did not hooligan for the tournament. We had a different strategy, which we'll talk about. But we're always putting those hooligans to work. I love them, except I spent a whole afternoon cleaning mine, and then we just absolutely found every rock in the river. I feel like every rock in the river from last week ended up in my hooligan raft.
I got to get mine ready for this weekend too.
Yeah. It's just how it goes with those things. They're super versatile, but you got to take care of them. But awesome boats, Stealthcraft and Cortland. Thanks for sponsoring. So before we get super deep into the main event, talking about Treelands, we got a few topics, just happenings from the shop, Musky country. We've been busy over here, especially with all the good fishing going on, the tournaments. We have tons of new products and stuff that we're getting into the shop. We're not going to be able to talk about it here, nor would we want to. But if you follow us on Instagram, Facebook, or are subscribed to our emails, that's a good spot to get in the know on what's dropping at Musky Fool. A couple highlights that I was excited to see. We got a ton of new Renzetti Vices.
Heck yeah.
From pretty much all the colored ones. The Traveler Series Saltwater Clouser looks like a sweet vise. We got a Master Vise.
Yep.
And a bunch of the materials that Renzetti's kind of sister company, RD Fly Fishing, makes. So all the Game Changer brushes, pretty much every brush they carry in every color and every size.
Single color.
Yeah, we did not skimp. We got 5-inch brushes, which are some of their special customs for the big musky flies, all the way down to 1/2-inch, 1-inch streamer brushes, lively leg brushes, flash blend, translucy, you name it.
I'm stoked for them.
Yeah, so those are sweet. And lastly, on that plug, we also just got all our Sims logo gear. So we have folks asking about some of this stuff. I got one of them on right now, the Fall Run vest. Looks cool this year. I like it. A lot of different products. We got a button-down shirt, a couple hoodies, jackets, vests, river shed. Yeah, it's pretty sweet. They did a really nice job with that. So get in while that taco bags. Yeah, we did get an embroidered taco bag.
Yeah,
everybody needs a taco bag
for sure.
So that's about all I had there. One more quick plug on my end is from the guide season. I think that's been another reason we've been so busy. Not me personally, but I know Nick and Josh and Hunter have been absolutely slammed. Nick especially, I think almost got up to 2 weeks straight of musky fishing, which even when you love it, that's a lot of musky fishing.
And then he had like one day off and then did it again.
Yeah,
So
but his batting average is pretty good. If you're getting in the boat with Nick before the end of the year, be ready because it's been going down. Yeah, that's about it. We're pretty much booked for this season. We're going to run trips through the second week in November, but we're almost all booked. So you can reach out if you want to sneak one in, but very unlikely at this point. Next year is already booking up for trout, bass, and of course, prime musky dates. So hit us up at the shop. Bam Bam, you had a pretty fun guide update from your one of your recent trips. Tell us a little bit about that. What happened?
Yes, sir. I just want to give a quick shout out to my new buddies, Evan and Vance. They came on a trip a couple weeks ago, and we just had a gorgeous fall morning. And I told those guys, you got to be ready right away. It could happen at any moment. And sure enough, right away that morning on the float trip, Evan hooked into his first muskie on the fly. We netted it. And then while we were rowing to shore, Vance hooked into a second one. So we had a double up going on that situation. But unfortunately, due to a fly malfunction, that the fly ripped in half, we lost the second one. But Evan was so stoked. I was so happy to be a part of that special moment. And then he went on to catch his second muskie on the fly moments later. So big shout out to those guys. They had a blast that day.
Nicely done, Evan. Congratulations, and thanks for coming out. Well done to you as well, Joshy. Hopefully there isn't a whole lot of issues with the next fly. That's a bummer to hear, but it's what happens with musky fishing.
No, it wasn't my fly, by the way. I will not take credit for that.
I will not take credit for that. Oh, that's great. That's great. What about you, Gabriel? Other than we've been fishing together a little bit, but what about not guiding this fall? How's it feel?
I mean, I love guiding. There's many parts of it that I miss, but you know, it is nice to be able to get up in the morning and go do my own thing. So I give props to those guys for doing it.
Mm-hmm. Well, and we've kept you busy around here.
Oh yeah, it's not like I'm sitting on my butt. But
yeah, Gabe's been working on. We got to get all the orders in for next season, and actually really starting this fall. So all the stuff, cool new stuff, and it's
from that. Yeah,
it's like it's a lot of work. It's also pretty exciting because we're getting a bunch of new crazy stuff in.
Totally.
I don't know if there's anything that sticks out to you it's all a blur, probably.
It's a little bit of a blur, but I mean, today I was working on MFC, Montana Fly Company, and we've got just about every
streamer,
trout, bass streamer you could dream of coming.
That's awesome.
Pretty excited for that.
A couple of their new materials as well. I think I saw you flipping through that.
Yep. Some more brushes. Sparkle minnow brushes, bunny brushes, all sorts of goodies. So
cool. Well, that's what we got for the current event update. Big shout out to Evan once again. And if you guys are looking to get in the boat, reach out at the shop or via email. Next year is already starting to book up. We'd love to fish with you guys.
Yep.
So let's talk Treelands, gentlemen. Where do we start? Treelands Fly Fishing World Championships. So I guess where did the event start? Josh probably has more history than I do, but it's almost 10 years old, actually happening at Treelands. Coming up, I think, on 10, maybe next year or the year after. And then there was another tournament that they kind of absorbed before that. But they've been the longest running musky fly fishing tournament.
Yep.
Yeah.
And it's been in the same place the whole time, right?
Treelands, Treelands,
yeah.
Exactly, and they put it on. It's not like somebody brings it to Treelands. Correct. Treelands puts it on. Yep, organizes the whole event, does the rules and the fish logging and all that stuff. Yep.
So yeah, if you don't know where Treelands Resort is, it's on the Chippewa Float in northern Wisconsin.
Yep, in Hayward,
just outside of Hayward.
Awesome venue,
famous musky water.
It is. Yeah, and they just have a really good spot. They've been up there for a long time on that section of the flowage. Lots of cabins, a big event space.
Mm-hmm.
It's pretty sweet. It's
ground zero.
Yeah, it is. And what did they get this year? I think they filled up pretty quickly. 100 anglers.
Fastest ever, I think.
Yeah. And definitely a unique tournament. I'm not privy to a lot of the other fly fishing tournaments out there. There aren't a ton. I know there's a striper one.
There's one fly tournament.
Yeah, there's one fly tournaments and stuff like that. But as far as Treelands go, all musky, all fly fishing. You don't have to be on a team. You can fish solo. You can fish teams of 3. Huge amount of boundaries.
rivers,
lakes, flowages. So this year they actually updated that, which was definitely part of the strategy.
Very much so.
Yeah.
Much our strategy.
Previously they've had they kind of like I can't remember if it was counties or actually they picked specific bodies of water.
A list of lakes and rivers, and I think even like specific sections. Of
yeah, you're right. Like up to Highway 8
down
or
to this.
Yep.
Yeah, very confusing.
So that got revamped this year to basically be 5 counties all touching, which was insane. I mean,
that's like more than a quarter of the state of Wisconsin.
Almost down to Eau Claire.
Yeah.
And all the way up to the Superior.
Yes.
That's a lot of water.
And you have to be back.
A big area.
Yeah. And you have to be back to the tournament by a certain time.
Exactly. Yeah. In the most densely populated area of musky lakes and rivers in the world. Pretty much.
At least
Close
in
to.
the country.
Close to.
Yeah. For sure in the country.
Yep. So that made things interesting. I don't know. What did you two gentlemen think about that? Don't matter? Minor detail, or did it change the calculus a little bit?
I think for me, it changed the calculus because the first year I had done it was the year before. And so I had been kind of trying to wrap my head around previous to last year and right after, like, okay, what am I going to do next year? And then when they kind of broadened the borders, it was kind of like, oh, wow. Like
you can do anything.
Now where am I going to go? Everywhere I know where to fish is open. So, made it interesting.
Mm-hmm. What about you, Bam Bam? What do you think of the new rule?
Yeah, overall, I mean, if you looked at the territory for the tournament, it was overwhelming and it got you second guessing yourself a lot too. Especially you can do all the scouting in the world, but until the week comes and even the day before, like conditions can drastically change. Like they did last year. We had that gorgeous weather at both tournaments. And then the day of, bam, cold snap, like 40-degree swing.
Yep.
Snow, like one day you're wearing short sleeve t-shirts and then the next day it's snowing, so as Mike Tyson said, everyone has a plan until you get punched in the face. But yeah, the thing about those strategies is you can't second guess yourself and you can't fish in the past. You got to go with your gut and you got to look at what the current situation's doing. You may have caught a fish somewhere else, last year or 2 years ago, but you just can't fish in the past. You got to fish for the now.
Yeah, and I wonder, it's interesting when you compare it, like how it changes the incentives and everybody's behavior. Because in one sense, it almost was easier last year, especially if you didn't know the water. They listed out the water. So it was like, well, I've never been to that. Let's go to this spot. It's on the list.
Yeah. And I think one other caveat to that is they changed the date. So
true, they moved it up a week.
It was moved up, which was the last weekend in September. Last year, it was either the first or second weekend in October.
Which minor detail is sweet because now Beast of the East, the other tournament, and Treelands were not on the same date. There were literally maybe 2 or 3 people that fished both of them, which is rad.
Yeah. I think the other thing, too, is pushing it forward. Just it at least changed our plan because we weren't worried about Lakes tournament.
Correct.
We were worried. We knew water temps were going to be a little safer. We weren't as worried about that crazy cold snap.
And it was just colder in general last year. So it kind of seemed like the small lakes had already started to turn over last year while the tournament was going on.
Correct.
Which made it difficult. But yeah, I think and then the other thing, like you compare it to in the other big musky tournaments, you usually pick a body of water. Mm-hmm. All 50 to 100 anglers have to go to the same spot. So it's different. You're like guarding your spots a little bit. You might see the guys or girls who caught fish the first day, fishing the first day, and try to go to their spots the second. They might be frowned upon, but there's all just sorts of different stuff.
Yep. And I think that could be a really interesting tactic for Treelands to try sometime. I don't know that it would ever happen because, especially in the fly angling community, we have river boats and lake boats, so it's not like they could just put it on the Chippewa flowage and expect as many people to show up. But
we riffed about that though. I think one of the nights, like how would you change it even further? I think we had talked about like making it 3 days and have to catch a fish on one of the days
for the final on the third day. Yeah, there's all sorts of ways.
We should just it was more just for fun too. It wasn't like we were complaining either. It was just like, what if? How can we musky fish more up here? Yeah.
And as far as isolating bodies of water, that's basically what Beast of the East does, and that's the biggest differentiator between the two tournaments. You either have a section of the Allegheny River you can fish, or it's on the Lake Tynesta. Those are your only two options. And I do think that makes it interesting and adds another element to your strategy as well when you're fishing out there also.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. And it was like, again, back to the PMTT, it was the week before Treelands on the Chippewa flowage, 100 anglers, one lake.
Yep.
A huge lake.
Giant lake.
And that's usually, as long as the body of water is big enough, everybody gets their own spot. Because I know Beasts of these can get a little bit crowded in some of the honey holes. At least that's what I've heard. But yeah, that was cool. That was the big, we didn't know, are you going to run into people? Or are the spots that used to be in the tournament that still are they going to be empty, busy? There's a bunch of just questions. Kind of like Josh says, you can have a plan, but you don't really know until you get there and the clock
punches you in the face.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Muskies do that a lot.
In the early years of Treelands, the point system was different. So there was a big incentive to chase micro muskies and rack those up because they were really big, and the point value for those like 25 to 30 inch fish. So there were teams that were racking up like 8 to 16 muskies on the first day, and those were all big scoring
all
points.
Like under 30. Yeah.
But now, as the tournament has evolved and people over the years have learned, like, okay, that team was at that lake or the spot, tactics have changed. People have decided to do different stuff. Like, do you play it conservatively and say, okay, I'm going to go pile up some small fish on the first day, go for a Hail Mary the next day? Or am I going to just try to target mid-30s fish?
Well, and even still with the current rules, if you're just operating, I'm looking at the results that you shared with us. If you're just operating for big fish, you would theoretically win as much as you win almost getting first place. You might not win first place, but if you got the biggest fish both days, biggest fish of the trip, so that's like you can just say, screw it, I'm going to go hunt for a giant and win the gold star,
Yeah.
Yeah. So that was interesting.
The thing I love about these tournaments is that, like, all the people that are competing here are at the highest level in this sport. Yet I don't think there's ever been a team that has won 2 years in a row, let alone top 3 2 years in a row. Maybe a couple times.
Gabe and I next year, baby. We're coming.
It's anyone's game, and I'm rooting for you guys. I really want you to get up there.
Sure.
We'll see. The team that won last year, how did they do this year?
Correct. I mean, my team caught 0 muskies last year. Gabe caught one 2-pointer.
One little guy for the team.
Yeah. What are the points? Should we share that? Just I think. Correct me if I'm wrong, but over 32
is worth 8 points.
And then every half inch is worth a half point.
Yeah.
After that.
Yeah.
And then 25 to 32 is 2 points.
Yep.
So
it has to be 25 inches to even get a point.
To get a point.
Under 25 inches,
Yep.
It doesn't count.
So you got to catch 4 scrumpers to equal 1 32-inch muskie.
Right. Right.
Which is fun, but it's a hard way of doing business.
We're going to hear about how fun and hard it was from you in just a second. Well, and then I think historically, like, I don't know if you guys looked at this, but typically and every tournament's different, PMTT, Treelands, Beast, etc. But for Treelands, typically if you get on slow years, really slow, 25 points, it gets you in the hunt.
Yep.
Busy years, lots of fish being caught, 50 points gets you in the hunt for the top 3 at least. And those are kind of, I mean, if you go in, a great goal is to be like, we're going to catch 4 40s. That's usually a tournament winner.
Absolutely.
For sure.
Every single year.
That's a hard goal to accomplish.
It is.
Yeah.
It is. It was almost accomplished, though.
Yeah.
So that's a little background. Go ahead.
Oh, what was y'all's strategy going into the tournament? Like, Did you have like point values in mind? Like you're like, okay,
No, we just cast huge flies for the biggest fish we could find.
so you were just guns a blazing right out of the gates, day one.
And we use gear, and no one will see us. That was what our strategy was. No, we're full of shit.
Did you guys sink dog crates filled with suckers at the bottom of?
Not this year. We did
Not
not.
this year.
We
Okay.
got caught a couple years back, and so we didn't do the dog crate thing. It's too bad because that's a good strategy.
That's a good story. We might have to come back to that one.
The dog crates. Have we not talked about that on the podcast?
I don't know, mate.
The only caveat I'll share before I share the dog crate story is the details are fuzzy. So it wasn't me, but the where and when it happened. But what I was told was that it was a Musky tournament. I swear it was the PMTT like 4 or 5 years ago, but I might get some PMTT hate mail where these gentlemen were consistently performing well, and they got caught on the Chippewa flowage putting dog crates full of suckers in the water at certain spots before the tournament, marking said dog crates with waypoints, and coming back to them to find muskies circling them like sharks.
Fishing them like structure.
Yeah. Creating their own structure.
Sucker structure.
Yeah, which I will say the rules in the tree does not say you cannot do that. Let me just call that out. It says you can. It doesn't explicitly say no live bait as long as it's not attached to your rod and reel.
I want to play devil's advocate for a moment here and say that those suckers were probably more humanely treated in that dog crate than they are in a live tank at like an Ace Hardware. And also,
frankly, hooked up to your rod and reel, they're protected. They're in a shark tank.
They're protected. They're just hanging out and taunting the muskies. They probably have the time of their life. And also, I give that team pretty mad creative points for finding the loophole and just thinking out of the box a little bit, even if they stole everyone's money and got a new Skeeter and whatnot. But
totally in support of them being called out for cheating. It's illegal, but like you definitely get like, wow, that's pretty. I kind of want to go try it. Not at a tournament. I don't want to go put a dog crate full of suckers. Make your own musky spot. Yeah, it's a good one.
It's interesting.
What was our actual strategy? Well, the funny part was we were a little. I liked where we were coming from this because we were not like aligned going into really that night. At least I remember telling people that. I don't know if I made that up, but it was kind of like we were like, oh, we got some option. What are you feeling, Gabe?
The way I feel about it is like you had a plan, which I was like, yeah, that's a good plan. And my mind was like, okay, but where else? Like, how else can we have a plan that may work with that? Because I lived up in Eau Claire, so a lot of that water I know really well. And the spot that we did fish is, I don't want to say it's popular, but it's a little bit well known. So I was just like, all right, how can we think outside?
Are there going to be people there?
Yeah, exactly. I was worried we were going to be out there with 12 other people and we were going to have to change halfway through. So I was just trying to come up with other options. Luckily we didn't have to use
we didn't have to. But what were we, if you can remember what we were, I mean, at least my general thesis going in was, other than a couple spots, and rivers were just not fishing super great.
No, they haven't been really all summer until it recently started.
Correct, and flowages started to let water out, which happened all after Treelands.
Yep.
So it was like the third year in a row of low water. There weren't a lot of. There's still the spots to get some small ones that we discussed, little secret raft missions and stuff like that. But we were basically like, we need to get 4 mid-30s.
Yes.
35s, 4 35s.
Put us in the race. In years past, we have tried the let's go get 2 45s.
You guys did that last year?
That's a game.
Okay. That was your game plan last year, though.
That was our game plan last year. Like, we wanted to go get big fish, try to catch 2 40-plus inch fish, and we failed at that. And then we kind of went, with our tails stuck between our legs.
Yeah, well, and then you're scrambling after day one. So I think another sub-strategy was like we wanted to kind of go to a good spot out of the gates, come out swinging.
Yep.
Yeah, like if you can get a fish on the board, even if you're back in the group, you're not in the scramble where our muskies. Oh my God, it's a dark spirally, slippery slope.
Yeah.
Yes.
So that was the general plan, and which kind of led us to lakes.
Totally.
Then you had been doing more scouting. I mean, Josh and I scouted like a month before the tournament, but that was just to like fish a new lake.
Yeah.
But you had been up there more recently.
I scouted the Chippewa flowage beforehand.
Yeah.
I was like, man, like the guys at Treelands, the owners were like, I don't know why you guys keep going elsewhere. You can win the thing right in front of the tournament. So
secret tip there. That's what he said. Yeah. Harold did say that, everybody. Yeah. Chippewa flowage has muskies. Oh my gosh, spot burn.
So I went out there and I ended up finding one. I caught a nice 41 inch muskie, and that was the only thing I had seen all day long. I wasn't seeing bait. I wasn't seeing follows. I just happened to run into one lonely muskie. Mm-hmm. So I wasn't real confident.
Program wise,
I wasn't real confident in making that a spot to win the tournament.
Right. And that, I think, is the difference that we started to hone in on, is like, we weren't going for a spot to catch a muskie. I think there's like the list below that, which is like, there are spots where you can actually go catch 5 muskies in 2 days over 35 inches.
Correct.
Pretty consistently, without like being on the water 7 days prior, because none of us had that luxury. I mean, you got up there a weekend before.
Yep.
We got up there the day before the tournament, so it's not like we were, coming in and fishing the spot, which again is another benefit to when the tournament decides for you where to fish. Your pre-fishing changes because you just are like, okay, we're going to come in and scout the Chippewa flowage. That's where we get to fish. So we were a little all over the place. I think the night before we ultimately were like,
well, and I think one of the points that you made too is, a few of the other spots that I know and really love to fish because of their potential to have these, 50 plus inch fish, is I fish bigger water. That's not always the best idea for a tournament because those fish can move around. They can be up in the shallows. They can drop off the weed edges. They can go up into the creeks that come in. I mean,
when they're not in the A spot, not in the B spot, not in the C spot, maybe the D, E, F spots. It's like, oh God, we don't huge have body of water
in an 8-hour tournament day. So your strategy of like, let's pick a slightly smaller lake where we can kind of dissect it and fish A, B, and C spots 3 times in the same day, figure out what they're up to, and then catch them.
Yep. And reduce, I think the other element that factors in for me every time Treelands comes around is reduce the fuckery.
Yep.
Like, yeah, I love fishing rivers, and there's all sorts of spots that we go to on a normal day of fishing that just has some fuckery involved. And like, that just means getting up earlier, getting off the water, maybe right at 5, not rivers you can't go back to fish on, all sorts of stuff that it's like, if you want to fish from 7 a.m. to 5 p.m. effectively, efficiently, that's where we landed.
Pick a smaller digestible lake.
And that's what we did. It's still muskies. I think that's the thing that, like, still muskies, have no idea, but that's been a spot that produces that time of year. We kind of knew the lakes were fishing well, just from the big clear lakes were starting to go. The small stained shallow lakes were starting to go. The flowages, I mean, there are muskies biting just based on where the temperature in the winter, the seasonal pattern was at.
Yep.
So that was kind of our headspace going in. And then we had, I think the other thing we did, we kind of nerd out about this. I don't know. It's fun. Like, some people go up there and more power to them. They're just like, fuck it. Let's just go to wherever we want and have fun.
Which is totally
do your thing.
Awesome.
Yeah. We're not talking about make yourself rich, $50,000, $200,000 prize money here. This is about fun. And,
Well, I almost said that because Josh, you said, I remember you saying a comment earlier, like, everyone at the muskie tournament is at the top level of the sport. And I would agree with that to like,
I'd agree.
To a pretty well extent, but I think there's also a lot of people that are just up there to have a super good time and hang out with a bunch of like-minded folks, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with that, and I think it's sweet.
That's really a cool. I think we should talk about that actually before we get Josh's game plan, Josh and Jake's, because I think that is a special part of that tournament, even amongst all other types of fishing tournaments.
Totally. Yeah.
I mean, there were frankly people up there that admittedly were like, hey, I've never caught one before, but this is sweet. I want to get together with 100 muskie fly anglers in northern Wisconsin in late September. This is like paradise.
Yeah.
At Treelands.
Yeah.
And that's what's really cool about it, is it's not too serious. We like muskie fishing way too much. So we're nerding out about this and that, and how can you win, and where can we go, and all sorts of things. And every minute has to be a cast and flies in the water and using not using sucker pens. But yeah, that's Treelands is sweet like that.
Yeah.
What's Beast like? Kind of similar. That's the vibe I get. Like good fishy folk, but also we're here for a good time, not a hard time.
Yes, for sure. I felt like historically, I'll jump back to Treelands quick before I go to Beast. Historically, at Treelands, people did seem like it was more of a party, and it was more about the brotherhood and just having a good time, and no one took it that seriously, and blah blah blah. And in the recent years, it seems like it has become a little bit more serious. There's teams up there that are literally competing, like doing tons of scouting, fishing all of that water a bunch beforehand, coming up with game plans. But before it was a little bit more laissez-faire, I guess you could say. But it's still.
Yeah, we talked about that too. Of just like it seemed like it cleared out a little bit early. Now there's still a bunch of people there. It's great to see everybody. We had an awesome time. I wonder, fishing was tough overall. Like generally, everybody that went to the rivers, which was a lot of people, the fishing was almost like a ghost town.
Couple fish caught.
And that's always a grind. I remember that from 1 year, like when we came back and didn't have any. You just like, you don't want to talk about. You're just like, how many did you catch? Well, it was more than me, and it's not a great feeling, but I think what Josh said is important to remember. At least we remember that. Like, it's when do you get to come up there and see everybody? People you won't see for the rest of the year.
Folks all into musky fly fishing. Like,
Yep.
Find that everywhere else.
Yep. There was a little tournament within a tournament going on though, because we the folks over at what's his name? Russ. So Russ is actually the gentleman who did our countertop and our rod racks in the shop. So I don't know if he's still doing the woodworking anymore, but he's got some skills. He works at Thorn Bros, and he called me and said they wanted to do a little inter fly shop tournament. And apparently what it was going to be was there was going to be a traveling trophy for the first place fly shop amongst, I believe, 3 of them usually show up: Musky Fool, Bob Mitchell's, Thorn Brothers. And whoever other fly shops show up, you're more than welcome to join the fun tournament within a tournament. Know this, though. The last place team was supposed to swim across the channel in the bay at Treelands. I don't believe it happened this year, so there's an IOU. I'm coming for you, Aaron. I know you're going to swim across the channel next year. So that was like a little fun. I liked it because I don't know. We're not, like Josh said, it's a good attempt to like not get too stuffy. We're competing against the other fly shops.
Yeah.
Superiority complex. It was just like a fun.
Yeah, it reminded
joked
me of
about
like
it.
a time at camp in high school when it was like the group that didn't do something had to like do all the dishes for them.
Yeah,
it was kind of like just fun.
Yeah,
but you also didn't want to lose.
No, I didn't want to swim across the channel. I'm very motivated by negative motivations. Like that was an ass kicker for me.
Yeah.
But yeah, it just interesting vibe, fun vibe. I'll do it as long as that tournament's going. I love that place. Love that time of year. I'll be in northern Wisconsin fishing no matter what, so you might as well join. But
it's so much fun.
I know. We're gonna do both of them one day, but I've say this to a lot of people, like, you got to come out. It is probably the hardest thing you can do to me personally is get me out of Wisconsin in September and October. Like, that's why I live here. Frankly, like, I complain about it most of the time. Water's too hot and stuff. Like, September and October is like, I don't deer hunt anymore.
No.
I'm not really interested in going elk hunting because it's all like sacrificing September and October.
Or even like other types of fishing.
Not that time of year.
Yeah.
Nope. So it's nothing personal, Pennsylvania. We love you guys. We'll be at beach one of these days when all the Wisconsin muskies don't bite anymore. But back on track, Joshua. So Gabe and I were a team. We didn't address that. You and Jacob Red Bear Fields were a team, who's also been on the podcast before.
Yes.
What were your guys' thoughts going in?
Well, I mean, you and I did some scouting, Dan, a month out from the tournament, and then Jake and I went up there several times too and did a bunch of scouting. Unfortunately, our scouting efforts just really didn't pan out the way we did, or the way we were hoping for, and we didn't have a whole lot of confidence in
ruling stuff out, not ruling it in.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
So then we had to go back to, what what do we feel confident in, and what's our approach here, because I think like it is really tough to go out there and say I'm going to bag 245s like Gabe was saying. That's a tall order of
Anybody
business.
can say it. Not everybody can do it.
And I know the team that won last year did exactly that. Like they had these fish dialed in, they freaking hunted them down. The conditions were perfect and it all came together. But our approach was a little bit more conservative. The first day we went to a numbers quantity fishery and we're like, okay, we just need 10 to 15 points out of this fishery today. If we can get that, we've hit our goal for the day. And then day 2, we'll go to another fishery that will hopefully yield, some mid-30s fish, and we can
Or go
make
back.
it, or
Or go
go
back
back
to the day one
depending
plan.
on
Right.
how that was going. And also get intel from you guys because we're a little bit of allies during that
No,
tournament.
I mean, we definitely not just kind of the mere fact of just like all fishing together, being friends, and staying in the same Airbnb. We're like,
Yes.
yeah. And what's your game plan? Okay, well, we can both audible based on each other's the next day. Like that's part of the fun.
Yep. So the first day we did exactly what we were supposed to. We had 16 musky encounters. We boated 6, and unfortunately, only 4 of them were scoreable.
So 8 points.
So 8 points total.
Yep.
So
Which is the risk of that, like doing that plan, and like we almost the night before we almost were like, should we just follow them to that spot?
Yeah. Yep.
Because you could also have caught 4 32s and had 32 points.
And then I think where we went wrong on day 2 was, okay, well, we have previously decided that both teams are going to go their separate ways. We're going to get intel from each other's team and then make a decision that night of where we should go for day 2. Where Jake and I fell short was like, we saw you guys boat those nice fish day 1. We could have very easily tagged along for day 2, but we got a little bit greedy and we're like, okay, Gabe told us about this amazing lake that he just scouted. He moved a couple of monsters there. And so that's where we went. It was a brand new fishery to both of us. So it was a bold move, but we're like, it's either now or never. We have to get points here. So we were just going for a big girl.
Big leapfrog. Well, like a leapfrog day.
I mean, yeah, because the fish that I had seen and the spot that I had pointed out, I was kind of like, those would have been potential winning fish. I mean, those were some high scoring fish. So it was a little bit of a Hail Mary, but it could have paid off. That's
totally.
Well,
that's how exactly. Well, let's get into the day of fishing then, I guess, because then we'll just kind of ping pong what we both saw, what we both encountered, how it changed strategy. But going in weather wise, it was warmer than it wasn't like last year where it was cold and crappy and you're fully suited up for winter elements. Like
beautiful outside.
It was very pleasant.
Yeah.
Water temps were low 60s. Low 60s, like 62, I think, where we started the day.
Conditions were stable from what I recall.
They were very stable. I have it right here. Well, we did get first day actually was like a weird fall Wisconsin day. We got wind, rain, but it wasn't like we just put a rain jacket on. It wasn't like cold rain and a day of rain, but it just had a lot of change going on. Wind coming in, clouds coming in, sun coming out, rain coming back, etc., which is usually not a bad thing.
Yeah.
Not going to sit here and say it works every time, but not a bad thing at all. No. And just result recap. So there looks like 22 muskies caught day 1 out of 100 anglers. Is that right? That seems like a lot. No, that's right. That's right. Yeah. 25 and a half inches to 41. Well, yeah, Bam Bam, they caught like 6 of them. So,
yep, only scored 4 of them.
And not a lot of doubles. Not a lot of doubles. So that's something to keep in mind as we go through this. But I guess, what do you remember from the morning, Gabe? I remember we got the boat in, which is, that early in the morning when you're on the clock, it's pitch black out. You're always like trying to get out there early. We got out there perfect timing and
pretty early. Yeah.
Kind of started going right away.
We were ready to fish before we could even
Correct.
start. I mean,
Good,
it was
which is
like
recommended.
we were watching the clock, and it was kind of like, okay,
Yep.
we're good. So.
Yep. There have been a year where I rolled in and was late, and you're scrambling, and it's a little more stressful. Yeah. But yeah, we got out. We got to the spot. Really. We had agreed on our lake, and then it was like, well, where are we going to start? And
Start with the spots we know.
Start with the spot I like the best, and they were there like right away. I remember, like it was like, oh, game on.
First half, 20 minutes.
Yeah, we moved a bunch of fish.
Yeah, maybe even the first like 10 casts.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh. Wow, it's just feeling like a blur right now because I feel like we did that for most of the day. We didn't actually catch them until. I want to say like 1 to 3. Yeah. So that was like when we saw the bite window.
Yep.
Yeah. You guys had a great bite window that afternoon, didn't you?
Yeah.
Yeah. Cause we hooked 3.
We hooked. Yeah. I hooked.
You had the trolling mortar one
in the morning. Like I had a couple.
Oh, that's right.
Morning,
it's coming back to me.
And then you converted
yes.
in the afternoon.
It's coming back to me because we were ultra shallow. Like we started off and we kept getting shallower, switching to shallower lines, and we couldn't figure 8 them. I remember that. We would run into the weeds. Like as soon as you'd bury your rod tip even 6 to 10 inches, you'd clip weeds and they were kind of spooking.
Had to switch lines and stuff. I remember switching from a sink 4 to an intermediate because I was just dragging my flies through the weeds. I mean, some of those fish we saw were in
2 feet or less,
1.5 feet of water.
Yeah. And good size. It wasn't like, I mean, we went to a spot where there's a pretty decent size structure all the way up to mid 40s.
Yep.
So that was good. I mean, that's like what you're hoping for. It doesn't always happen like that on a tournament. You're like, okay, cool. We don't have to spin our wheels for several hours finding them. They're right where we thought they were. Let's just fish.
Yeah.
Doesn't always happen like that.
It was like a 100-yard section. Like it seemed like there's maybe a little more, maybe a little less, but 100-yard section where it was like every 15 to 20 feet, there was a new muskie. And we kind of just
ran back and forth. Well, in day one, every time we'd run it, we'd either see another one in a different spot, get like it.
Yeah, they were kind of cruising.
We didn't even really move around the lake.
No, every time we did, we didn't see anything. We went back to that spot, and there they were.
Man.
And there was like a couple boats. I think especially around like 10 a.m., another boat or two showed up. So we kind of were like, oh, we don't want to give this spot up.
Yeah.
So we just kind of stayed over there, ran it. But it hit a point. I remember viscerally like midday being, because like you start and you're like on a high because the tournament just started. You're moving fish. Oh my God, we're going to get them. We're going to get them. And then it's all of a sudden it's noon and you moved a dozen fish and you haven't got one.
Yeah.
And it's like, fuck.
Okay, what are we going to do?
What do we, that was fun, but we got to catch a couple. And then just what I'm trying to remember what happened with the 2 fish. The
2 you caught or
well, because you had hooked a couple in the morning. You had hooked the small one that smashed into the trolling motor.
Like ate the fly, swam at me 100 miles an hour, jumped out of the water, and then ran into the trolling motor.
Yeah, with like an 18-inch fly in its mouth.
The fly was a huge fly, and the fish was probably 25 inches long.
And that's, I guess, that was the other thing that we encountered too, is we didn't really have to like rifle through flies. We had to make one noticeable gear change, which was get to intermediates, get shallower. You were pretty much throwing big stuff most of the day and moving a ton of fish on it. And then I just, to not do the same thing, threw a very similar fly, just a little bit smaller. And then the first one was, I remember now. It was just the first one was just a classic T-bone, smoked it. What you're looking for out on the cast. The second one was untangling a fly line while the fly was sinking to the bottom. And my first strip, it was a muskie.
Oh no!
So that was lucky.
I love those.
Those are the best. Yeah, so that one was funny.
I'll take a gimme every once in a while.
But that was pretty much day one. It slowed down after that.
I think it's worth noting that Dan caught all the muskies for our team.
I did. It's worth noting though that Gabe and I, it was kind of like a karmic retribution for another day we had on the water, which I remember because it was the first time I had fished after we opened the fly shop last summer. Gabe was all hot to trot. I'm like, we're going fishing and I'm rowing you the whole day. I felt kind of spoiled and
Yeah.
got to
Well, and
fish.
that was also like in the middle of my guide season, so I was on the water.
Yeah.
Minus the 2 weeks before grand opening, I was fishing like a madman.
Yep.
I had caught plenty of muskies. This dude
I was
working
like,
his ass
yeah.
off trying to open a business.
Yeah.
So
he's, needless to say, Gabe is a nice guy. And we fished for 7 hours. I fished for 7 hours while Gabe rode and moved a pile of muskies. Didn't catch one. I finally was like, Gabe, your turn. I'm done. Like I'm out of gas.
Yeah.
Gabe stands up and 3 casts later, embellishing a little bit, but 10 casts later, he catches a 48. Didn't move a fish either. Just caught a 48.
Yeah.
And it was kind of the inverse of that. Like it was just Gabe was, I was futzing with boat stuff, and it was a little windy on day one, and
no, it was good.
Yeah, it was team fish.
I was stoked to net all those fish. For
yeah. So we got, what did we get? A 37. It's actually right here in front of me. 34.5 and a 37 on day one. So 23.5 points. I think it slowed down a little bit before 5, but mood in our boat, especially after the second one, was the 37. We were like, this is exactly what we wanted. Yeah, they could have been bigger and they could have been more and blah, blah, blah. But we're here and this is exactly what we were hoping for. So we were feeling pretty good. We were optimistic. You never know. I mean, we had a conversation leaving the lake. Like, you have no idea. If nobody caught fish, we're in the hunt. If everybody caught fish, we might be middle to back of the pack.
Yep.
You just don't, there's not updates going. We didn't have service, so we weren't texting these guys. And we got back in. We'll kind of round out on the results for day one once Josh shares. But yeah, so action all day, action in shallow weeds, really shallow weeds, big flies, medium flies, definitely flies that had a lot of movement and pause and side to side. I mean, it was, we're aggressively fishing them to long, heavy pauses, especially by the end of the day. But we didn't have to bust out all sorts of weird tricks. No, that was not what it was. Just pretty straightforward.
Catching in the way.
Got lucky. Yep, exactly. So that was our day one. We were stoked. I think it went as well as it could have gone. What about you guys across the entire state? It seems like.
Man, slow start to the morning. I was pretty puzzled, honestly. I went to all my spots that I said previously don't fish in the past, but I did go to those spots, and I was like, these are my confident spots. I caught. Yeah, we just caught fish there the week before, so I knew they were holding fish. We didn't get anything in there, so now we're kind of scrambling mid morning to find where are these things at. And we ended up locating some fish that were on the inside of the weed edge. So between the shore and the weed line, which is kind of a peculiar spot to find them.
Not too dissimilar to what we found either.
That's where we were seeing.
Pretty much where we were seeing
too. I do remember we were referencing each other's notes from that evening.
Yeah.
So that's where we found our first couple fish there. And then we just started like kind of working on that program, and we had a fantastic day with like a lot of musky encounters, which is always super fun. I did look at the results. So I did say before that we scored 4. Apparently we only scored 2 of the 6 that we boated, because the other
27, 25 and a half, 4 pointers. When did the bites start? When did the action pick up? Do you think it was like a window, or do you think it was more of the spots?
I would say mid-morning. Yeah. And
earlier than what we saw.
Historically, that lake for me at least has always been a little bit better in the morning. I have done decently well in the afternoon, but the morning has really produced. But that day was great, like nonstop action. We had so much fun. Unfortunately, those muskies just weren't cutting the minimum length we were after.
Mm-hmm. No, and that's we could have easily run into that where we went. We could have easily run into that. It's just kind of how it shakes out. So where were your headspace? Obviously in the part of catching muskies, it's pretty fun. Where were you guys at kind of driving to the boat landing on the way back?
On the way back.
Like you kind of knew, hey, we caught them, or where were you thinking you were sitting?
Yeah. I mean, to echo what you said earlier, Dan, like putting muskies in the boat day one of a tournament, regardless of their size, it's very important for your mental fortitude. Just like having that confidence, like it may not be the biggest, We didn't catch the most, but we're on the board. That's very important because day 2, you really feel like you're caught with your pants around your ankles if you haven't seen anything or you boated anything like that. So it's at least a start, and it gives you something to work with for day 2.
And it wasn't just like 2 happenstance fish. It was like a whole boatload of action. So you had like
Yes.
something to go back on. Yeah,
Yep.
that's huge.
Yep.
But
Like the one lucky one, and you don't see anything else. You're like, what do we do now?
Yeah.
Those are tough.
Yep. As far as strategy goes, though, I mean, we did know that we had to go to a fishery that could produce a pretty big fish day 2. And that's
So you guys
exactly
had to
what
up
we did.
yeah, agreed.
Yep.
And this is like, I think part of what motivated me to want to talk about this, like Treelands. Obviously we had fun and share the details, but because just the way the tournament is, there's so much water. I find that it kind of keeps everybody a little bit more secretive at the event compared to like the PMTT again, where at the end of the day you stood up and it was like, where were you? What were you doing? How did you catch them? And you don't share every little GPS waypoint, but usually it's more of a like
inside weed edge.
we were through exactly up on the windblown rocks. Like you like, oh cool, and you kind of learn something. A little bit more tight-lipped at Treelands, especially day 1. No one wants. Where were you? No one's really sharing lakes, rivers.
Yeah,
you can kind of get a read because you know what kind of boats people have, and you might have seen someone somewhere driving, etc. But other than that, it's totally kind of kept to the close to the chest, which is why we frankly wanted to talk a little bit about what happened, at least from our perspective, because I think there's a lot to learn from a musky angling. So day 1, final results then. It was like we said, 22 fish. Biggest one caught was 41 inches by the first place team. Russ, who we talked about earlier, they caught a 41 and a 38, putting them at 31 points. Gabe and I were in second place, 23.5 points, 34.5, 37. And then there was big doubles. The Nathan and Dangle team put 2 34.5s in the boat. They also were on small lakes.
They were right behind us.
We don't know exactly where Russ and Ben were fishing, but they had a big boat. Wasn't on a tiny river. I know that. And then I think really other than that, you were the only other. Oh, there was a couple other teams that logged multiple fish. Looks like the Dirty Strippers, Pond Monster, Musky Fool Part 2, and Special Task Force Unicorn had doubles. But overall, what do we get? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 teams caught fish out of the 22. So I don't know what you would say, Josh, but generally pretty slow for 100 anglers.
Yes. So it does say here last year there were 19 caught on that Friday, but I do know in seasons past that a lot more were caught than that.
Yeah, you can usually have a bunch of teams that catch 4. You usually have some bigger fish in there.
And there was like one team that caught like 14 on the first day.
Yes, and one fish over
ago,
40.
yeah.
One fish over 40 by the looks of this.
Yep. So overall, lower numbers and smaller fish.
Yeah, and it left it really all to play for on day 2.
Yes.
Because I think anybody could catch 3 or 4 and be right in the hunt.
Yep. It looks like, according to the results, Beast of the East ended up with some bigger numbers than last year as well. Not by much, but just a little bit also.
Yeah, 38.5 was the big one. 38, 37.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. 11 muskies were landed in total.
For Beast?
For the total, yeah.
For Beast.
And that's just different fisheries, too. Less anglers, and then, like Josh said, I mean, you get to pick any of the water in the most densely populated muskie area. There's more muskies anywhere. Yeah, they should catch more at Treelands.
Yeah.
There's more muskies.
Totally.
So day 2, as we're going in, I guess just another moment to like, what was our headspace a little bit, Gabe? Because we came back, I think we were both surprised that we were in second place.
Yeah.
I remember being like, as soon as they read off the results, I was like, no.
All right.
I figured we might be top 5.
Yeah, and it was kind of like, all right, now we got to go redo this again today. And we had seen so many fish the day before, it was kind of like no question. It was like
we're going right back.
Yep. I remember some crazy weather in the morning too, which was sort of weird. We didn't get on the water right at
No,
time
we were
because it was pouring.
we were in our car like, do we have to do this?
Yeah. I mean, it wouldn't have been worth fishing in that.
No.
Um,
But I do remember that being an interesting factor as well, with just a sidebar on figuring out kind of where people were. Because when we came back later that day, we're like, oh yeah, we couldn't put the boat in. It was raining. And they're like, oh, it rained on our drive to the spot. But other than that, we never got rained on. We're like, oh, I know what area you guys were in then.
Yeah, totally. And then, I think there's even some people that were like, it rained at 3:00 in the afternoon.
Yes.
But then the other two groups hadn't had that. So it was like, we kind of
triangulate
where people were fishing. Yeah.
We know.
But yeah, I mean, it is a little blurry. It was a few weeks ago now.
It was.
And I've done a lot of fishing since, but we didn't see him right off.
No, we ran 2 passes on that first spot, and it was kind of like,
we're gonna have to pivot. And we pivoted, and didn't really see a whole lot in those other spots too. I think I had moved a few, had moved a couple here and there, but like not with any consistency.
And not with any nearly the aggression of the previous day.
They were little lazy follows, like that storm that had come through probably changed some things. And the biggest thing I remember about that day is, another boat rolled in, and we kind of saw him come, and we're like, all right, who are these guys? And it was not a tournament angler.
No.
It was a conventional guy.
Yeah, this was I think this was the one major mistake Gabe and I made at the tournament.
Yeah, and
that kept us from catching more muskies.
Conventional guy rolls in
on a spot that we had previously fished that day and moved, and it was like
just 2 fish.
Okay, we had said even like, okay, let's go poke around elsewhere and come back to that spot on the major or the
break. Yeah. And I turn around, we're fishing a new spot, hadn't seen any fish, and I was like, oh, damn it, Dan, they got one.
In that, they went right to that spot.
Right to the spot. I had just seen one. We were kind of bummed about it a little bit, and then we
went over to the spot. Then we're like, okay, we need to get in there. We need to inch ourselves in there. They caught the second one right in front of us.
Later, they caught the second one.
Yeah, right on the spots we had moved them.
Yeah.
Mid 30s, upper 30s, like it was good 8-pointers.
And by that time, it was probably 1:00 in the afternoon, 2:00. Like we only had 3 or 4 hours left in the tournament to try to catch another fish to see where everybody was.
Yes.
So we were feeling
the heat, and we were feeling like,
deflated.
Oh man, that other team probably caught 2 by. I mean, just all the thoughts come into your head at that point.
We were bummed. We hadn't talked to each other in 30 minutes.
We were all sorts of stupid flies and and we were out fishing mid-lake humps and we were fishing way more different. Like it wasn't as straightforward as the first day. I think that was what you expect actually, but after you get spoiled on day one, you're kind of waiting for that to happen again, and it just wasn't.
And then I mean,
the last hour and a half,
last 2 hours, we went back to the day one spot, the 100-yard section where we had seen piles of fish. And
I remember you saying kind of like the lake was kind of coming alive.
Yeah, we started hearing birds, and there was bugs starting to come
bait
off
fish
and things moving. I mean, you had electronics, so we could see certain things happening too. And I think we decided to go make another pass, and it was like, they didn't go crazy on that first pass. It was like, oh, we just moved one, and then 20 minutes later, it was like, oh, there was another one. So they are in this area.
A nice one too. You moved that nice one. It was like, oh, that was a 40
plus inch fish. And in that last half hour, I think we had another 10 fish all going. You ended up catching one. I mean, we were casting until it was literally
we casted until 5:00, knowing we were screwed if we caught one. Yeah. But it was that. I mean, I was figure eighting a muskie with 5 minutes left. Yeah. That one. And we had just caught it wasn't a big one. What did we get? 30. It was a 2-pointer, wasn't it, on day 2? Yeah, 31 and a half. Oh, yeah, that was the story of day 2. Yeah, so we caught the 31 and a half. I thought it was around 4. and then nothing. I mean, nothing. We didn't catch anything.
Yeah,
but
but
we were
seeing
we
them.
were jacked until we were like in it. We were hunting. They were moving.
I even remember being like, Dan, should we just keep fishing? We have 2 hours to get back and register this fish. Like, let's catch another one just for fun.
Yeah. Oh, we saw how many fish did we see in the weeds on our way back to the boat landing? Like 3 or 2.
Yeah, just driving. Yeah.
So it definitely seemed like the evening was popping off, but we were joking and kind of deflated because we caught a 31.5 incher, which meant we were a half inch short of 8 points. And we were 7.5 points behind the first place team going into day 2.
Yeah.
Meaning if they didn't catch anything and the results stood, we would lose the tournament. We'd lose first place
by half a point and
half an inch.
Yeah,
a half inch.
So that
was we were excited. We caught 3, but that's really what we were. You're kind of leaving knowing you had a chance, and then we didn't do it. We definitely we didn't beat their day 1 total. So we were like,
we knew we hadn't taken first.
Correct.
There's no way we could have.
No way, unless they cheated.
Yeah,
on day 2, which they weren't gonna. But that was us. What about you guys? You were on the adventure on day 2. You had a fun morning though. I saw some pictures. You explored. You saw a huge musky head.
Yeah, we saw a huge musky head that was a drinking fountain shaped like a muskie. It was fun. It was fun exploring new water. We didn't see anything that day, and I definitely want to go back.
Did you guys? What was the mood in the boat on day 2 exploring new water in a tournament? It takes a special type of person to get along in that scenario.
Yeah, I got pretty gnarly from 1 to 3 p.m. I'll say that, like a dark place, lots of silence. There's no slap happy singing going on in the boat.
No,
you're grinding, and you're like, oh, I just feel it, like it's gonna happen, and it never did. But that's musky fishing.
Yep. That's why they have. That's why you have hams in the boat for the tournament.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, and then I guess we all got back. It was all we. Were you with me or was I by myself? I think I dropped you off, and I was pulling the boat. Oh no, we were walking together. We were walking after we parked the boat. We walking back, and then saw Ben and Russ.
Yeah,
the guys who were in first. And they saw that we had yellow slips in our hands. So they were like, uh-oh, yellow registration slips. Yeah. And then I said something like, don't worry, you didn't even have to fish today and you won. Yeah. And they're like, oh, well, we caught a couple. And we're like, all right.
Yeah. And they caught a couple that were bigger than the days previous.
Yeah, that's, I think, where you got 40 and a half. So they caught 2 more 40s to end on 41, 40 and a half, 38. And we were in third at 34 and a half, 37, 31 and a half. So they, back to what we said earlier, if you can go out and catch 4 40s, you pretty much win. And that's what they did. Russ got all 4.
Props
Nicely done, Russell.
Guys. Yeah, props to those
guys.
Yeah, Russell the muscle.
Very well done.
Yeah. But it was fun. There wasn't, again, not a whole lot of action. 18 muskies on Saturday, 40 in total. Biggest fish of the tournament was also Russ for 41 inches. So he walked away with $2,400 for winning the team and then $1,600 for big fish. So
both days.
Yeah. Well, largest fish of the tournament, $1,600.
Oh, I thought there was a big
I think it's 800 and 800.
Wasn't there a side pot thing or something that he won to? I thought he
won. Yeah, I don't know if they post those.
Pile of money.
Yeah, he did.
That's a pile of cash. Go hit up Russ if you need some dollars.
Yeah, go hit up Russ. He's sitting on some. He's done now. He's retired. He's a professional tournament angler. Yeah.
He bought a new sparkle boat. New house in the Hamptons.
He's a changed man now. It's not the same after he won the tournament.
Damn.
Can't even get a call with him anymore. No, we're kidding. We're happy to. I mean, we weren't. I'll be honest. We wanted to beat. I think that. I'll be honest. We weren't stoked about it. We had a little internal rivalry. We didn't finish last, so we didn't have to swim across the channel. Yeah. But the fly shop.
Bummed. I wasn't that bummed though.
No, you can't be. But I think we were like,
bummer.
Piss. Yeah, but it was good. It was kind of good. It was kind of fun to have a couple of the shops, people that we know in the hunt.
Yeah, super fun.
A couple other buddies were in the hunt for third place.
It seemed like we kind of knew everyone up there a little bit. whether
That's what it seems like. I think that, again, back to why it's so much fun is it's just like you see people that you don't see all year. Guys fly in from Colorado. You know, Pete Candelaria came and hung out with us at the shop on
cheese curds.
Oh, that was the best. Shout out to Pete.
Thanks, Pete.
Yeah, what's up, Jordy?
Jordo.
Yeah, you missed out on that, Josh. We got the royal treatment the day before the tournament.
Man, go get some now.
What would you have? So, what would you have done differently, knowing what happened, Gabriel? I'll ask you next, Josh.
Biggest thing I think is, I mean, it's hard to say. Hindsight is 2020. I mean, I don't know that I would have changed much except for
keep the wear.
Yeah, keep the wear. I would have kept the wear. And then I would have, when I saw that other boat,
sucker pens.
22. No, when that other boat, when we saw that other boat put in on the lake, I probably would have zipped right. We should have zipped right back.
Good tournament strategy. We kind of we had the lake to ourselves. We kind of were in the zone, and then all of a sudden we weren't.
Yeah.
But
agreed. I mean, even that might not have done.
No, it might have added 16 more points to our tally potentially.
We
but
also might not have caught those fish. They were using bucktails.
Correct.
Flies, it's hard to compete with bucktails sometimes when that's what the muskies want.
Correct.
So they may have come an hour later after we had fished them again too, and caught it. Like it's hard
or not have caught them at all.
Yep. So,
yeah, we did not explore. We did not have to go to Plan B spots. I don't know in hindsight if I would have. It was kind of like, yeah, I'm with you. We had to execute the same game plan.
Yep.
We had a shot.
I don't think I would have changed much.
Maybe sabotaged Russ and Ben a little bit more Friday night. You know, got Russ a little drunker. Yeah, I think that would have been a better strategy. But he's a little bit too wise for that these days.
Yeah.
What about you, Bam Bam?
I still like our play that we did for day one. That lake can definitely produce when it wants to, and we hit it on an off day. And then knowing what we did know that night about where you went and what we said we were going to do. But
you guys were deciding that morning.
Yeah, we were indecisive. I think it's because we were so sleep deprived. We're like, let's just not go all the way over there where they're going. Let's just sleep in a little bit longer and fish local.
Go right by the Airbnb.
Yeah, and that's what we did. And it was a huge fail. But in a perfect world, I would have gone to where you guys went and crushed way more muskies than you guys did.
Yeah.
Hell yeah.
Until next year.
Yes.
Until next year, Josh.
I've never been in top 3 at Treelands. All the years I've done it, it just hasn't come through.
It's gonna change someday, dude.
Yeah. I was so stoked to see you guys up there though. I mean, that was very well done.
Wink wink. He wouldn't talk to Gabe and I the whole second day.
That's bullshit.
I don't know what he's. I know it is. It's total bullshit. I'm just fucking with you. Yeah, no. Josh is. He's about as good as a team player as they come. So he was. We could have used a little bit of your positivity around, let's say noon or 1 on the second day.
Yeah. That is tough. You're getting.
It's not like Gabe and I were at each other's throats. We were just like, fuck.
Yeah, we just like too focused. We needed a cheerleader.
Yep.
Maybe some better boat snacks.
I don't even remember what we were snacking.
No.
Not much.
We couldn't use live scope either. That was another. Do you remember that? Not that it would have mattered.
I don't know how to use live scope.
No, I just remember. I remember the night of the rules. They like announced it, and I jokingly was like, "Oh well, we're screwed." No, we didn't even. Wouldn't have helped us.
No, it wouldn't have helped at all.
It's more of a distraction, especially when you're doing that. Oh man, what else? What else happened? I can't really remember. Like Gabe said, it was. We covered that. We covered day 2. We covered all the fish that were caught. I mean, go ahead.
Some of the differences between both the tournaments, I know we touched on that a little bit earlier.
Yeah, I guess let me just wrap. So just for like people, I'll hit you with that in a second. I guess the takeaway that was interesting that came through for both days and the top 5 or 6 teams is it was definitely seemed like the winners had where figured out.
Yep.
Because day 1, day 2 for the top team, they went back to their same spot, and there wasn't a whole lot of other popping off action that anybody had to report. I mean, yeah, sure, everybody. I missed one, I saw one, I caught one, but it seems like shallow, stained lakes of really all sorts had fish going.
Yep.
Rivers were quiet for both days.
And
I
so
mean,
that-
really
yeah.
quiet.
Yep, rivers didn't do well.
Small rivers, big rivers, jet boats, rafts, you name it. It was.
And then not, yeah, I mean, it's like know where the fish are, and it's like it's deeper than like go to this lake that has muskies.
Yes.
It's like where are the muskies on that lake that day?
Yep.
Which is that's where things get complicated.
And that time of year with the conditions, I think we were very weed driven, cabbage driven program.
Yep. September shallow, baby.
September shallow. They still were there.
Yep.
They even day 2 when we had to move a little bit, it was still that program for the most part. Yeah, that's really like my takeaways. I think that was the most interesting. Like, what did the tournament teach me about muskies? Was just that seeing it play out. We know it plays out. It plays out all the time. A couple weeks later, it was the opposite. Rivers were going off and the lakes were in turnover. I mean, that's kind of where we're at right now.
Yeah.
So if the tournament happened right now, it would have been a totally different ballgame.
I think another thing worth noting quickly is that is not how I would fish tomorrow.
Oh, just like if we're not in a tournament?
If we're not in a tournament, I would not.
That's a good topic.
Tactics. I don't enjoy fishing those tactics. For me, musky fishing is so much more than just trying to catch as many as you can.
Agreed.
I like the process. I like checking new things out. I like looking for a big one and not looking for a bunch of 32s.
Yes.
So I think that's
yeah. I mean, where we were, there is a small chance at a big one, but not a big fish spot.
Correct.
And then I think even more to that point, it's a grind. Like, especially when you're a little bit in the hunt, you're fishing as most as you can fish in the given allotted time. You kind of it does suck a little bit of the, I don't want to say suck the fun, but it's not like we wanted to go do that on Sunday.
Totally. Like sometimes I want to take a 20-minute break and eat a Pop-Tart.
Yeah. Cast the stupid fly off the deep side you know. Yeah. So that was how we were fishing, I think.
Tournament.
It was very focused on what's working. What are we doing?
Fishing.
Yes. Tournament fishing.
Totally.
But sprinkling that in every once in a while is also fun because it forces you to fish like in the moment of tournament fishing. Like, I haven't fished like this in a while.
Yeah, totally.
But not an everyday thing. Not why I do it either. What about you, Bamalam?
Yeah, I echo that. Different approach for the tournament.
Yeah, not the way you want to fish every day.
No, sir.
I'm not going to catch 52s that way. Okay, Beast. Tell me a little bit about it. So Bam Bam, background. Bam Bam took a little Treelands hiatus last year and went out to Beast because last year and all previous years, they were on the same weekend.
Yes.
Beast of the East, which is a little bit different. It's put on by a Muskies Inc. group, Nitty Valley Muskie Inc., I believe. Nittany? Pennsylvania Muskies Inc., Chapter 67, I believe. That's who puts it on. The Matt Dixon, super good dude, fishes the PMTT a little bit too. So it's kind of sweet that way because all proceeds for that tournament do go back to the Muskies Inc. chapter.
Mm-hmm.
What else? About 30 anglers. Is that how many spots there are?
I think it's more than that. Probably like
30 teams, maybe.
30 teams, 60 anglers. I want to say.
That sounds about right.
Slightly smaller, but again, it's growing big time, and it fills up just like Treelands does too. And you had asked earlier, Dan. There's a lot of serious anglers there too. You know, a lot of the folks there, they're fishy people. They're immersed into the industry, into the sport, but it's also a good vibe. Everyone's there to be cordial. It's all about the brotherhood. And man, it's just so much fun. Definitely a different overall situation than at Treelands. Treelands is hosted at a resort, and Beast of the East is like in this big circus tent in this parking lot in front of like a bar restaurant type of place. And so the first night, it's just the captains meeting, they call it. So the captains are one representative. Each team shows up, they get their packets and check in and all that stuff. Whereas Treelands, everyone has to be there to check in the first night.
Yep.
Then throughout the tournament, the check-in process is different. At Beast, you can text your fish. I believe you have to take a photo with the card and and send it in. So you don't have to check in that night. There's no deadline. Where Treelands, you have to be back by, was it 7 p.m. to check that fish in or check your catch in for the day?
Beast follows a little bit. Probably because Matt Dixon puts it on. Beast follows a little bit more of the PMTT rules with that.
Yeah. But then the last night, everyone's there at both tournaments, and it's a big fun time, fun event. You get to meet all sorts of people. And that's like my favorite aspect of the tournaments is just, and the reason why I went to Beast is because you interact with these folks like through Instagram, Facebook, on the internet, wherever.
Yep.
Yeah. And so like you make all these connections and friends, and then you've actually never met them in person or got to fish with them. And so that was so fun to just like go talk to these people I've been interacting with for years and finally, hang out with them or fish with them.
Meet the guy that ties your favorite musky fly on planet Earth.
Yes, absolutely. Mr. Mark
Burns.
Urban Fly Company. But man, I will say those guys out there, holy cow, do they know how to put together a fish camp. It's hosted at Dr. J's dad's cabin up in the woods. And man, the food there, I just can't emphasize enough like how the level of the food that these guys are cooking. It's crazy. I mean,
so it's not our Oreo double stuffed Oreo and chili lime Dorito program.
Like
it's a little
catered ribeye from.
Oh yeah, Treelands.
That's not.
No,
I mean, it's delicious food.
You got like
Treelands. Don't love the ribeye though. Prime rib, not ribeye.
First day at camp, Chris Sims, he rolls up and he just gets to town on this gigantic fish boil, and then you got like Marky Burns slanging like pulled pork and whatever else. You got Nikki Sags from Buffalo, New York, making homemade buffalo wings. Jimbo's making some crazy ass stuff.
Everybody's like flexing on the food.
Really,
that's a good situation to be in.
Awesome.
Rick Eiler brought like 30 pounds of freaking oysters from Maryland.
Jesus.
It's just unbelievable. That alone.
And you get to just show up as the special guest. Normally, Bam Bam's the one having to wrangle the fish camp escapades over here. Yeah, he just shows up. You got any Chippewa One Pieces for me? Because I didn't bring shit.
Yeah. Oh my God, it was so fun. Yeah, that's what it's all about. Like truly, that's what it's all about. These new experiences and making connections.
Yep. Yeah, for sure. And lots of folks showed up this year too. I think the Cortland boys, Richie Nicoletti, who's a buddy of ours, and they were at this year's Beast. Ian Danielson, shout out to him. He's a good customer of ours, listens to the podcast. I believe he's the only one, him and his teammate, that fished both tournaments in the same year.
Ooh.
Yeah, that's quite the haul.
We're going to have to do that sometime.
Yeah, because why would you have to leave, especially for us, because we have no fucking clue what to do out in Pennsylvania.
We wouldn't be able to scout.
We'd have to. We'd have to leave like Sunday or Monday.
God, that like sucks.
Fish Wednesday and Thursday.
Yep.
Like at least find a boat landing.
Yep. Or we just go and hang out.
Yeah. Just follow the other boats around and hype men.
Might get lucky.
Yeah, you might get lucky. There's always that as a strategy for musky fish.
Let's do it.
I'm in.
One of
I want to do it. I want to do it. We just got to lay it down and actually commit to a week of that. And we have to bring our own boats out there, which I'm also in for.
That's true.
Is this a peer pressure circle right now? You're both looking at me like, Dan.
Trade off, Dan. I'll stay back next year. You and Josh can go, and then you stay back here next year.
And then you can
Josh and I can go.
Perfect. Deal.
The year after.
Deal. You heard it here, folks.
We'll put a hooligan inside of the Lund, and we'll use the Lund to launch the hooligan on the Allegheny.
That's totally possible. Or we could just bring my hooligan that's deflated all the time. Self-deflate in the Lund.
That is also an option.
Actually, can you drive your boat, your car, and your hooligan all the way to Pennsylvania? I'll just hop in and maybe bring some Oreos.
Yeah. Totally. Sign me up.
All right, good. Yeah, well, I think we covered most of it. Needless to say, we had a blast, if you can't tell. We love, whether it's Josh going to Beast, Treelands is like my happy place in fall. Yep. It's a good, drama-free, fun, camaraderie, fishy event. Yep. Always bound to learn something about muskies, meet somebody new, see somebody you haven't seen in a while.
Yep.
Big shout out to Treelands. They do a really good job. I genuinely think they do an awesome job. Tatum, Harold, Tyler, We love going up there. So thank you for keep doing it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
See you next year.
See you next year. Absolutely. Maybe Beast. Sounds like we're talking about it already.
Yep.
Anything else, gentlemen?
That's
It's
it.
fall. Fall, go fishing.
Yeah, it is fall. While we're recording this, it is October's almost over. It's kind of when the transition to late fall happens. We talked about that on a previous podcast. Action, September and October. We love it. It's beautiful out. It smells like muskies. The colors are gorgeous. All that. The pumpkin spice lattes at Starbucks. It's November and December, though, I think, is when we get the most excited. And we say it. I think it's worth noting. You're the one that brought this up a lot last year. It's like, it seems like a lot of people quit in November.
Yeah.
Like October's when it ends, and
November is my favorite month of the year. Granted, I don't catch as many muskies.
But they're usually twice as big as the other ones.
Fat.
Mm-hmm.
They eat the biggest flies I have. And, oh, man.
Yeah. Spots that we go to in that time of year where like we don't really visit them the rest of the year, and they're primed. So we're not done over here. We're going to keep fishing until there's ice on the water, and we'll probably break a little bit of ice to get on the water.
Until my
so
flies start bouncing, I'll be fishing.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's the name of the game. Well, we appreciate everybody. We're signing off. You got Josh, Dan, and Gabe, episode 12. Thank you, everybody. Until next time.
Cheers, y'all.
See you, folks. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to the Spot Burn Podcast. Coming to you from the dungeon, this podcast is presented by Musky Fool Fly Fishing Co. We want to thank our awesome sponsors, Cortland Line Company and Stealth Craft Boats. We also want to thank all of you, our listeners, for tuning in, subscribing, sharing, and spreading the good word. If you haven't heard, go check us out at muskyfool.com. Have fun up there on the water, y'all.